Okay, so Lisa and I are the nutrition consultants who will be conducting this training today. I will start the training and train first. So I'm going to present and share my screen with everyone. Lisa, can I get a thumbs up from you? Since I'm in.
It's just black.
Okay, give a minute. Sometimes it takes a second to load on your end. Let me know once you see it.
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, so welcome everyone to the Child and Adult Care Food Program State Training. As Lisa said a minute ago, if you have not done so, please complete the pre-test. She shared the link in the chat box for you. Again, you need to complete the pre and post test in order to receive your certificate for this training. This is our CACFP contact information. The number displayed on the screen is our main line. Please be sure to bookmark the two websites you see on the screen, our CACFP website and the Colorado Nutrition Portal website. And Lisa will add those links to the chat box for you. So I'm going to do a quick introduction of our team. We have Naomi Stinson, she is our director. Tanya O'Connor, she is the CACFP compliance manager. We have Megan George Nichols. She works with outreach and she is the NSB QI performance management specialist. We have Osreen Palauste. She's actually no longer with us as of today. But we still include her in the introductions because we still feel like she's with us. We have Lisa Debitz as a nutrition consultant. We have Britt Martins, she's a nutrition consultant and she works for Farm to ECE. We have a new nutrition consultant named Natalie Ostrander. You see myself, I'm Alicia Wager. And we also have Sydney Odian Smith as another nutrition consultant. We also have our fiscal unit. We have Audrey Christensen. She is the fiscal administrator. She works with Katie Rowe. She is the fiscal purchasing agent. And we have an operations unit. We have Julie Fancook. She is the supervisor, the branch operations supervisor. And we have Samantha Homler, and she is our branch operations support specialist. So we would like to get to know you as well. If you would drop your name and the name of your center and what you're hoping to learn today into the chat box, we will do our best to acquaint ourselves with you as well. Hi, Stacy. We're so glad you're here. Stacy, what center are you from? Give everyone a second to type. Hi, Amanda from Denver. We have Suzette from Riverside Educational Center. Shannon McKenna. Jen Lees from YMCA of Metro Denver. Hi, Landon from Riverside Educational Center, and Christy Baker from CDI Head Start. Hello, hello. We also have Tammy Anderson here from Food Bank of the Rockies. Cindy Mitchell as well. Hi, Dana from Pueblo 60. Oh, we have Brittany and Heather here from Mesa County Public Health. Hello to you. Noelle from KinderCare. Ari from Aspen Center. And it looks like we have Beatrice with Leonard, Jasmine, Diana, and Susan. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the fiscal training. Okay, so we will go ahead and get started with the course objectives. Just give me 1 second. Let me get on the right screen. Okie doke. So in this course, you will learn about procurement, budget, entering claims, financial risk assessments, food service management contracts, or FSMCs, and what to expect in a review. A few fiscal reminders. You want to check the Secretary of State Business Database to ensure that your institution is in good standing. You'll need to update your periodic report on an annual basis to maintain a good standing status. Lisa will be dropping this website link into the chat box for you. You will also be obtaining a DUNS number, which allows your institution to establish a credit history, and it's required to participate with the CACFP. So please double check to ensure your institution has a DUNS number. And Lisa just dropped that link into the chat box for you. The Fiscal Procurement Manual can be found on the CACFP website under Manuals and Guides. This manual will help ensure you are meeting the fiscal requirements to participate in the CACFP program. And you'll also see that link has been placed in the chat box for you. Okay, so we'll jump right into procurement. The Office of Management and Budget, also known as OMB, requires institutions that receive federal grant funding to follow the procurement regulations as outlined in 2 CFR Part 200. It is acceptable if the institution's current business processes are more stringent than federal requirements. The purpose of this self-certification is to ensure CACFP institutions are following these requirements by using federal dollars efficiently and within regulations. The institution agrees the following regulations will be used when purchasing or entering into contractual agreements that are federally funded. And these regulations state the CACFP institutions are required to have a written code of conduct, a written procurement procedure, and maintain all documentation associated with the procurement process. By signing the CACFP procurement self-certification form and following the procedures outlined, you will be in compliance with the procurement regulations. And you can find the procurement procedures in the downloaded form section of the CMP, which is the Colorado Nutrition Portal. The document is titled Procurement Self-Certification, and Lisa's just added it to the chat box for you. So the Code of Conduct. The institution agrees to conduct all procedures in compliance with stated regulations to prohibit conflicts of interest and actions of employees engaged in the selection, award, and administration of contracts. Your institution must also agree to the following. No employee, officer, or agent may participate in the selection, award, or administration of a contract supported by a federal, state, or local award if there is a real or apparent conflict of interest. Such a conflict of interest would arise when the employee, officer, or agent, any member of his or her immediate family, his or her partner, or an institution that employs or is about to employ any of the parties indicated herein as a financial or other interest in, or a tangible person benefit from, a firm considered for a contract. The institution's officers, employees, and agents may neither solicit nor accept gifts, gratuities, favors, or anything of monetary value from vendors. However, officers, employees, and agents may accept unsolicited items of nominal value as long as they are not directly involved in the selection, award, and administration of contracts or any aspect of the procurement process. And these standards of conduct must provide for disciplinary actions to be applied for violations if these standards by officers, employees, or agents, and must explain disciplinary actions for violations of standards of conduct. So the written procurement procedures, the purpose of this is for the institution to certify that all written procurement procedures adhere to the general procurement standards. Within that, the award contracts only, this allows you to award contracts only to responsible vendors possessing the ability to perform successfully under the terms and conditions of a proposed procurement. It also allows to conduct analysis to determine the most economical approach for procurement. For example, consider opportunities such as bulk purchasing, joint purchasing, leasing, or cooperative agreements when possible. You also review of procurements by institution officials to determine the avoidance of purchasing duplicative items and to determine if cost analysis are being conducted to ensure the best economical approach when procuring items and/or contracts. You must also allow for maximum open and free competition by soliciting quotations, bids, and proposals from enough qualified sources. Incorporating a clear and accurate description of the technical requirements for the material, product, or service to be procured. In competitive procurement, the description must not contain features that unduly restrict competition. For example, you must not specify brand name without allowing for an equal product. You must prohibit placing unreasonable requirements to qualify for business. You must not require unnecessary experience or excessive bonding. Identify all requirements that potential vendors must fulfill and all other factors to be used in evaluating quotations, bids, or proposals. Distributing purchases evenly among qualified sources and ensuring prices are reasonable when using the micro purchase method. Ensure minority-owned, women-owned, and small businesses are used when possible. And applying applicable contract provision as required. And applying only a fixed price or cost reimbursable plus fixed fee method of pricing, not the cost plus a percentage of cost method of pricing. Meeting all local, tribal, and organizational procurement requirements. And retaining all documents relative to the procurement process for 3 years and 4 months from the end of the federal fiscal year to which the records pertain. These guidelines do not relieve the institution of any contractual responsibility. In accordance with good administrative practice and good and sound business judgment, the institution is responsible for the settlement of all contractual and administrative issues arising out of procurements. This includes source evaluation, protests, disputes, and claims. Procurement continued. So we'll talk next about the method of procurement and required documentation. The United States Department of Agriculture, the USDA, the Memorandum FM 03/2018 outlines the threshold for purchases. The memorandum defines the threshold of micro purchase as purchases up to $10,000. Small purchases is over $10,000 and up to $250,000, and formal purchases is over $250,000. The institution certifies the following methods are used to procure items and required documentation is kept on file. Small purchase method, micro purchase method for conducting procurement when the dollar amount for a single transaction is less than $10,000 and transactions are spread equitably among qualified sources. The invoices and receipts of goods and/or services must be kept on file as documentation. For small purchase method for conducting procurement when the total purchase amount is more than $10,000 and up to $250,000, and similar items are frequently purchased from the same qualified source, price quotes will be obtained from multiple sources, preferably 2 or more qualified sources. And there's certain documentation to be kept on file, which includes solicitation and written specifications, names of vendors whose prices are evaluated, price quotes, evaluation criteria, selection of vendor with rationale of selection was not, if the selection was not the lowest price, and of course your invoices and receipts. So for the formal purchase method, for conducting procurement when the total purchase exceeds $250,000, institutions will use a sealed bid or IFB or competitive proposal, RFP. And the following documentation will need to be maintained: solicitation and written specifications, public advertisement to ensure open and free competition, names of vendors who responded, bids, proposals received, evaluation criteria and score sheet for the RFP only, vendor selection and contract award, correspondence and working papers, invoices and receipts, and documentation of any vendor's unmet claims or breaches. So for the non-competitive procurement, sole source, this will be used when one or more of the following circumstances apply. The item is available only from a single source. A public emergency prevents utilizing competitive solicitation. After solicitation, a number of sources competition is determined to be inadequate. And except in the event of an emergency, this method requires written approval from the CACFP prior to awarding the contract by submitting a sole source approval form. And for the non-competitive procurement, the documentation to keep on file is you need to file the sole source of approval form, solicitation and written specifications, price quotes, and invoices and receipts. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, like a breather break, to do a poll. Lisa is going to launch a poll for us. And on this poll, you'll see a question, and it's a multiple choice answer. So how much would an institution need to spend in order to be required to use the formal purchase method?
See if we can get just a couple more answers before we end it.
All right, so the poll results are in, and it looks like 90% of the answers answered procurement exceeding $250,000, and that is the correct answer. We had a few people answer that the procurement would be, the formal purchase method would be procurement less than $10,000. And I'll just reread what a formal purchase method is. It's for conducting procurement when the total purchase price exceeds $250,000. And you'll be using a sealed bid or a competitive proposal. Okay, so next we're going to discuss budgets. In this slide, you'll see that it is a CACFP requirement to complete a budget projection of the anticipated budget for the fiscal year. This budget projection must be completed on the CACFP template and attached to the institution's application packet. Independent centers are required to complete a budget once every 3 years. The budget will need to be completed during recertification of the year the institution is under review. Sponsors of centers are required to complete a budget once a year, and the budget will need to be completed during recertification every year. Sponsors of unaffiliated sites are also required to complete the budget once a year during recertification. And multi-state programs are due on the same timeline as independent and SOCs, the sponsors of centers, but they have a different CACFP budget template. So you can download the budget detail worksheet from the Colorado Nutrition Portal. You will find the budget templates in the downloaded forms section by clicking applications in the top left corner, then clicking download forms. From here, you can select the budget template that applies to your institution. The budget detail worksheet for institutions with one site. You might need to select the budget detail worksheet for sponsors of centers with more than one affiliated site, or the budget detail worksheet for sponsors of centers with more than one unaffiliated site. And thank you, Lisa. She just added the budget detail worksheet to the chat box. So you can go ahead and bookmark that or open it up and have it there for you. So once you've downloaded the correct budget detail worksheet, please follow the instructions on the Excel sheet. Please note the budget must be completed on the CACFP budget detail worksheet template. If you need assistance or have questions, please contact the CACFP Fiscal Compliance Specialist or your nutrition consultant. And once you've completed the budget detail worksheet, you will need to enter the values from the tab titled Final Budget into your application packet in the CNP. When you enter the values from the Final Budget tab in the Institution Budget Detail section of the CNP, you'll log into your CNP account, click Applications, click Application Packet, Centers, select the appropriate fiscal year, then click Revise. Next to the Institution Budget Detail section is where you'll see all of this information. And just to note, Section D, Administrative Operating Expenses, only apply to sponsors of centers. And this is because sponsors of centers have administrative costs associated with training and monitoring their sites. Sponsors of centers are permitted to claim additional funding for these administrative costs. The claims for the administrative operating expenses, they cannot exceed 15% of the meal reimbursement. And this does not include the cash in lieu reimbursement. That was just sort of an FYI. So after entering the final budget into the institution budget detail section, the institution will need to answer the questions in section E, the summary, and attach the budget detail worksheet. In section E, summary, the total CACFP expenses and the total anticipated annual CACFP reimbursement will be displayed. The institution will need to answer one of the following two questions depending on which applies to them. Question 1, if total CACFP expenses exceed the total anticipated annual CACFP reimbursement, describe how your institution intends to pay for these expenses. Common answers to that question include student tuition, general funds, grant money, or donations. And the second question to answer if it applies to you is, if the total anticipated annual CACFP reimbursement exceeds total CACFP expenses, describe how the institution intends to use these funds to improve the food service operation. So once the budget has been successfully uploaded, the final budget has been entered into the institution budget details section, and the institution has answered the questions in the section E summary. Click Save at the bottom of the page. And please notify your nutrition consultant that the budget has been submitted so that the fiscal team can evaluate and approve the budget as quick as possible. Budgets can be revised at any time, and you should be updating if there is, update your budget if there are any significant changes that occurred during the year. Okay, so time for another poll. Poll number 2, when does the CACFP require budgets to be completed? during the onboarding process to join CACFP, during recertification, every year for SOCs, once every 3 years for independent centers. If significant financial changes throughout the year, if those occur, or all of the above. Once we have the majority of participants' answers, we will launch the results. All right. So the correct answer to that poll is all of the above. Every single one of those answers pertain to when the budgets are required to be completed. So during the onboarding process, during recertification, every year for SOCs, every 3 years for independent centers. And you can update or complete your budget if there's any significant financial changes that occur during the year. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand the baton over to Lisa. She's going to continue with the second half of the training. And just to remind you, if any questions arise as we're talking and going through the slides, please type them in the chat box. Lisa and I are not fiscal or budget subject matter experts, but we will do our best to answer what we can today. And if we can't answer your questions right now, we will write them down and follow up with you as soon as possible.
Alicia, would you be able to confirm you can see the slide for entering claims?
I can see the slides, yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so on to entering claims. Claiming is the process that the institutions use to receive the CACFP reimbursement for the food service that they provide to their program participants. On this slide, you can see that the due dates for each claim month for fiscal year 21, they are all 60 calendar days after the last day of the claim month. So be sure to note that if the 60-day due date falls on a weekend or a federal holiday, then the due date will be extended to the next business day. On this slide, you can see the field for child care centers. The data fields where you can enter information include total days of operation, total attendance, and free, reduced, and paid category. Tooltips have been added to each section in the claims, which is this little blue circle with the eye in it. The tooltips have or will display information. So if you hover over that blue icon, it'll give you information on how to answer that question. So for attendance reporting, total days of operation, you would enter the number of days during the month that the site was open, serving meals and claiming meals for reimbursement. For total attendance, you would refer to the records of meals served or ROMs to obtain this figure. At-risk after-school programs can use their attendance sheets for this section, where childcare would have sign in, sign out. The boxes along the top of the ROMs form contain the number of participants who ate at least one meal or snack during that particular day. And the box furthest to the right is the sum of attendance for all days during that week. So to calculate the total attendance for the month, you would add the weekly totals on each of the ROMs forms for the entire month. And then you would enter this number into the total attendance field. For average daily attendance, the CNP or the system will automatically calculate the average daily attendance for you once days of operation and total attendance have been entered. For the number of enrolled participants in each reimbursement category, the data fields in this section apply to the CACFP childcare programs. It does not apply to the CACFP after school programs, Head Starts, or homeless and emergency shelters. The number of free, reduced, and paid participants, you'll want to refer to the income eligibility forms or the IEFs to determine the number of enrolled participants who are eligible for free, reduced, and paid meals. And you'll indicate these values in the appropriate data fields. And then for total enrolled, CNP will add the number of free, reduced, and paid participants together and display the total number of enrolled participants for you. For for-profit centers only, the license capacity for CDHS Division of Childcare licensed sites only. The site is licensed for childcare. CNP will automatically display the license capacity of the center. For free reduced eligibility, indicate the number of free and reduced participants that were in attendance at least once during the claim month. The eligibility percentage is automatically calculated from the information entered. For number of Title 20 participants, or CCAP, indicate the number of participants who are beneficiaries of Title 20 funding and are in attendance at least once during the claim month. For childcare specifically, Title 20 funds or funding is also known as the Child Care Assistance Program CCAP payments. So refer to the Department of Human Services attendance record and billing form from each county for the claim month to obtain this figure. Eligibility is automatically calculated after the numbers are entered. And for number of Title 19 participants or Medicaid, for-profit adult daycare centers must report the number of participants who are beneficiaries of Title 19 funding during the claim month. Refer to the Medicaid billing forms for the claim month to obtain this figure. Eligibility is automatically calculated after the numbers are entered. So for meals and snacks served, in the application packet, the institution should have indicated which meals they're claiming for, along with the times of those meals. Here you can see that the data fields are available for breakfast, lunch, and PM snack. So the institution can enter the number of meals or snacks that were claimed by the income category. Refer to your records of meals served or ROMs to calculate the monthly total number of creditable meals served for each meal type. Report the snack counts for AM, PM, and late snacks separately. This slide provides an example of entering claims for CACFP at-risk after-school programs. So for attendance reporting, the total days of operation, you would count the number of days during the month that the at-risk after-school program was open and serving meals and snacks. The number of enrolled or free. At-risk sites are not required to have enrollment for claiming purposes. So you would enter the highest number of participants served in one day during the claim month and enter this number as the number of enrolled free field. For total attendance, you would use the daily attendance records or the sign-in sheet, not the meal counts, to determine the total attendance. Each day the site serves a meal, count the number of children in attendance, add together the totals for each day in order to calculate a monthly total attendance for the site. For average daily attendance, CNP will calculate and display the average daily attendance automatically. At-risk meals and snacks served, you would want to refer to the meal count sheets to obtain the total number of creditable meals and snacks served during the claim month. Once the claim has been entered, click Save and then Submit, and claims will be processed by the CACFP Fiscal team and sent to the institution, typically within 10 business days. However, just note that the state does have 45 days to pay a valid claim. But we usually don't take near that long. Entering claims revisions, an upward revision occurs when the institution increases the claim amount from the original claim amount. A downward revision occurs when the institution decreases the claim amount from the original amount. So an upward revision within the 60-day deadline. To make an upward revision, the claim revision must be made within 60 days of the claim month and before the claim is processed and the payment is made. So to make the claim revision, you would log into your CNP account and click on the month you would like to revise. From there, you would click the Add Revision button and make the revision. And when you are finished, you would click Save, Continue, and Submit for approval. You should get the confirmation number and an email if you have entered the revision correctly. So upward revisions outside of the 60-day deadline, late claims that our input past that 60-day deadline that we shared with the due dates may only be paid under the following circumstances. If the late claim is due to a circumstance outside of the control of the institution, and this will require documentation to be submitted by the state to USDA for approval, or the late claim is input resulting from errors during a food program review, or the institution has elected to use their one-time late claim exception, which is only allowed once every 36 months. And the institution must select the checkbox in the claim to use this option. So to make the claim revision, you would log into your CNP account and click on the month you would like to revise. From there, you click Add Revision and make the revision. When you're finished, click Save, Continue, and Submit for approval. An error message will be received. You'll select the Correct Now button. Enter the reason you're making the claim revision into the comment box titled Late Claim Reasons, and then click Save. And the claim will not be able to be submitted by the institution, but it will be reviewed by the state. And if approved, the state will submit the claim on behalf of the institution. And you should get the confirmation number and an email if you have entered the revision correctly. So for a downward revision, this can be made at any time. If the revision is made after the 60-day period, after the claim month, there will be an error and the institution will need to make a comment before the revision can be processed. So you'll follow the same instructions as we just went over for the upward revision by clicking on Add Revision button on the month you want to revise. And then after completing the process and clicking Submit for Payment, an error message will appear. You'll click the Correct Now button, enter the reason you're making the claim revision into the comment box titled Late Claim Reasons, and then follow the instructions to the Submit for Payment button. You should get the confirmation number and an email if you have entered the revision correctly. And I believe I'm gonna try to share. Alicia, would you confirm if you're seeing the claim change instructions now? Okay, so I just wanted to try to give you a little bit of a visual of what we were just talking about. So this is a document that we can share with you if you don't already have it on file, CNP claim change instructions. And it's just showing you sort of what we were just talking about. That's the tooltip that goes over explaining what the different questions are asking you for, what the numbers are. And then it goes over the late claim comment box and one-time exception requests. And those instructions. And then here we're just showing you, this is the late claim reason comments box that I was referring to. This is the check box if you want to use your 36-month one-time only exception. So hopefully that's a little helpful visual. So we are going to go ahead and launch another poll. So this poll is asking, claim reimbursements are based on the number of meals served to program participants, true or false? Give it another minute here. All right, go ahead and end the poll and share the results. So most of you answered true. That is correct. It looks like maybe 2 people answered false. So if you do have any questions regarding the wording of that question or what it's referring to, please put your question in the chat box so that we can help address that. And then we're going to go into another poll. How many days do you have to submit a claim after the end of the month that is being claimed for? 5 days, 60 days, 100 days, or there is no time limit? Give it another couple seconds here. All right. I think a few might be unsure. We'll end the poll and share the results. So majority did answer 60 days, and that is correct. So great job. Someone might have thought 5 days. Of course, on that first day of the next month, you can do it as early as that, but you do have up to 60 days, or basically 2 months to submit the claim after the claim month ends. So good job. All right. I'm going to take just a little break and see if anybody has questions regarding the claim submissions, anything that we sort of walked through with that, any questions on anything we've gone over prior to that, and just see if anyone wants to post a question. Like Alicia said, this is not our wheelhouse, and so we may need to find an answer and get back to you, but we're happy to collect any questions you might have now. It's a lot of information, so.
Feel free to unmute yourself as well if you're not comfortable typing in the chat box.
Yes, thank you, Alicia. Okay, I'm not seeing or hearing anything, so I'm just gonna move forward. We, of course, will have time for questions at the end too. I think we did get one question. Is there a way to update the reimbursement rates if they have not already been done so in Cheers? And yes, Cheers is now CNP. I think I might need you to expand on that question, Shannon. I know our fiscal team does update the reimbursement rates in CNP accordingly for the claim payouts. Is there a specific spot that you're referring to updating the reimbursement rates at? I know we try to post the updated reimbursement rates on our website as well as soon as we have those. But yeah, Shannon, if you have more specifics to that question, if you want to go ahead and okay. I don't know if I can elaborate on that. Okay, no problem. If you want to just email me, please feel free. And my email, I'll be sending out the post-test email and my email. So yeah, please feel free to send me more details and I can definitely help you out with that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move forward with the financial risk assessment questionnaire. So this is newer to probably most of you that have been on the program for a while and might not have had to do this in the past. And if you were a new institution in this last year, you would have need to have done this, but we're all gonna have to do these now moving forward. So we're going to discuss this financial risk assessment questionnaire piece, or we're calling it FRAC for short. So the FRAC is a document that institutions must complete during the CACFP application process and annually during the recertification process, which the new program year, fiscal year 21/22, is going to be open in CNP tomorrow morning around 8 a.m. And this form will allow the CACFP state agency to determine the financial viability of the institution. And so that's why we need it. Local public health agencies do not need to complete this form since their risk is determined by the Financial Risk Management System, or FRMS. This form should be completed and reviewed by institution staff with the most knowledge of the accounting system and fiscal internal control structure. So if you have an accountant, you will likely need to request their assistance in completing the FRAQ. Any questions that remain unanswered will be assessed with the highest risk rating for that question. So if each question that is not answered or the required explanation is not provided, then the institution's overall financial risk may increase. So make sure to answer all questions and provide explanations as requested. And also please contact Celeste White for assistance with the FRAQ or FRAC, and Alicia put her contact information in the chat box. All right. So moving on to the Food Service Management Contract, or FSMC. Program regulations allow for institutions to contract with food service management companies to provide meal service for their institution. The CACFP requires all food service management contracts to be submitted with the attached standard fill-in-the-blank contract. Public institutions may, with the approval of the CACFP, use their customary form if it incorporates the required provisions stated on the food service management contract template found in the download forms section of the Colorado Nutrition Portal, or CNP. So a file path for the FSMC template is going to be sent in the chat box for you. If your institution will use a food service management contract or a food service management company, please provide the CACFP office with a copy of the standard contract. The CACFP must have a valid contract on file in order to approve your institution's participation and to reimburse your institution for meals and snacks served. The contract can be attached directly to your application in CNP. The enclosed standard contract contains required elements as described in Program Regulations 7 CFR Part 226.6I and 2 CFR Part 200 in Appendix 2. If your institution and the food service contractor determine that additional and specific requirements should be included in the contract, that information must be submitted as an addendum to the standard contract. The standard contract also includes a site information form. Please complete this additional form and attach it as part of the contract if your contract will include service of meals to multiple sites. Program regulations also require compliance with applicable procurement procedures when selecting an FSMC, and the following are required procurement procedures. So the micro purchases method that Alicia reviewed, the annual contract is less than $10,000. The only documentation required is the FSMC. The state agency will review the FSMC and approve it if all of the fields are complete and the contract is signed by all parties. For the small purchase method, the contract requires or qualifies as small purchase if the annual amount is greater than $10,000 and up to $250,000. The small purchase method requires the FSMC as well as a documented quote log with at least 2 quotes from different contractors. The state agency will review the FSMC and the quote log. The FSMC will be approved if all the fields are completed, signed by all parties, and a minimum of 2 quotes are obtained. If fewer than 2 quotes are obtained, the institution must submit a sole source justification to the state agency for approval. And then lastly, the formal purchase method. This applies to all contracts that have an annual contract amount over $250,000. Required documentation includes a copy of the public bid announcement, the invitation for bid or a request for proposal, documentation of all bids, the final vendor selection, and criteria upon which the award was based on, and the FSMC. The state agency will review all documentation and approve the contract if all requirements are met. For more information on procurement procedures, please download the procurement self-certification in the download form section of your CNP account. The institution will award the contract to a responsible vendor possessing the ability to perform successfully under the terms and conditions of the proposed procurement. Ultimately, the food service management contract company who provides the lowest quote and can meet all the requirements will be awarded the contract. Institutions using individual schools or school districts to provide meals do not need to conduct procurement. No bids or documented quotes are required, but they must submit an annual FSMC. In addition, school food authorities or SFAs may follow the National School Lunch Program procurement standards, as well as the Food Service Management Company requirements in lieu of CACFP standards and requirements. A copy of the NSLP food service contract, which should reference CACFP regulations, can be submitted to meet requirements. So the FSMC must be submitted to the CACFP for approval prior to the effective date of the contract. FSMCs last 1 year and must be renewed annually. Procurement documentation, the quote log, IFB, and RFP are not required for renewal years if procurement documentation submitted for the initial term included renewal options in the FSMC. Renewals are only allowed for a maximum of 4 years. This means the same food service management company can be used for a total of 5 years before the institution is required to follow the procurement requirements to obtain a new contract with a food service management company. For more information on FSMCs, you can download the food service management contract in the download form section in your CNP account. All right, so moving on to what to expect in a review. So first, record of deposit. Documentation of the CACFP reimbursement deposited into the institution's bank account for the selected review month claim is required. For example, if the review month was February, the February claim would show on the March bank deposit. If an institution is a sponsor of unaffiliated centers, please provide the record of deposit for each site. Acceptable documentation may be a copy of a bank statement, online bank statement printout, deposit slip, or accounting ledger. Next, we have invoices and receipts. Organized receipts and/or invoices for purchases and donations of food, milk, and food service supplies during the review month, including any invoices or contracted food services, are required. Include documentation of purchases made and donations received during the last week of the month prior to the selected review month. And that's just so that we can count, if your review month is February, we want to see the last week of January so we can count part of that towards February. We know you purchased things ahead of time. For procurement records, the institution's written code of conduct for employees involved in procurement of program goods and services is required. Please make available the institution's procurement procedures form. You may use the procurement procedures form in the download form section in CNP. I would recommend that. It includes everything you need, procurement and written code of conduct. So it's a great template if you're not already using it. And then vended meals, order forms, institutions sign delivery notices, records of returns, invoices, payments of invoices, vendors record of paid invoices, and production records for vended meals are required. If the food service vendor is not already being reviewed by the CACFP, a vendor site visit may be required. The nutrition consultant will let you know if this is required prior to your review. And then lastly, the food service labor records. Records to support any food service labor costs incurred during the selected review month are required. These records may include pay stubs and/or time and effort summaries for staff members with CACFP related duties. So we're going to go ahead and launch our last poll. And the question is, what documents should you expect to submit for the financial assessment during a CACFP review? Records of deposit, invoices and receipts, procurement records, or all of the above? All right. Looks like we got most and everyone answered correctly. So that is excellent. Very happy to see that. So hopefully all of that made sense. If not, again, just let us know or reach out directly. All right. That's the end of our presentation for CACFP fiscal requirements. So thank you for completing this course and attending today. We really appreciate your presence. Again, if you have future questions, you can contact the CACFP Fiscal Administrator, or you can send me your questions and we'll get you an answer. So we're going to go ahead and stop recording at this time so that we can go into a Q&A session, just in case there is anything else anyone wants to ask. And we'll go ahead and stop that recording now. I can.